The crisp October evening in Los Angeles, 2025, carried a faint tang of salt from the nearby Pacific as the neon sign of Vin's Bistro pulsed warmly on Melrose Avenue. The upscale restaurant, a fusion of Italian and American cuisine, inspired by Vin Diesel's late mother's recipes, thrummed with life. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over linen-draped tables where diners savored truffle pasta, grilled steaks, and artisanal cocktails. Laughter mingled with the clink of glasses, and the aroma of garlic and rosemary filled the air. For most, it was just another night at a celebrity-owned hotspot. But for Vin Diesel, it was a homecoming and a test. Vin, now 58, adjusted the black baseball cap, pulled low over his bald head, the brim shadowing his intense brown eyes. His hoodie zipped up to his chin, and faded jeans masked the action star persona the world knew from Fast and Furious and EXX. Tonight, he wasn't the global icon with a gravelly voice and $1 million smile. He was Vincent, the son of a cook, who'd taught him the value of hard work and heart, checking on the business he'd poured his soul into 5 years ago. After months filming Fast and Furious 12 in remote locations, from Iceland to Abu Dhabi, he'd flown back to LA incognito, craving the raw pulse of his restaurant, without the flashbulbs and autographs. He'd told his general manager, Maria, he was coming, but with strict instructions: no fanfare, no VIP treatment. "I want to see how it runs when I'm not Vin Diesel," he'd said, over a crackly satellite call from a desert set. Maria, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with salt and pepper hair, had agreed, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of worry. Vin had built Vin's Bistro, not just as a business, but as a legacy, a place where his mother's spirit lived on, in every dish, where staff were family and customers felt like guests in his home. He needed to know it still held that magic. Slipping through the service entrance at the back, Vin nodded to a line cook, Jamal, who did a double take but quickly returned to flipping steaks on a sizzling griddle. The kitchen was a chaotic ballet of stainless steel and steam, with chefs shouting orders in a rhythm honed by years of service. Pots clanged, knives chopped, and the faint hiss of oil met the sizzle of seafood. Vin inhaled deeply, the familiar scents grounding him. He moved toward the swinging door to the dining room, his sneakers silent on the tiled floor, when a sound stopped him cold. A soft, muffled sob, fragile as breaking glass. He froze in the doorway, his broad shoulders filling the frame. The sound came from behind the bar, where a young server stood with her back to him, head buried in her hands. Her apron, once crisp white, was now streaked with red sauce and wine stains, her blonde ponytail loose and disheveled. She wiped her eyes quickly with a napkin, as if ashamed, but another sob escaped, raw and unguarded. Vin's heart clenched. He'd seen tears on film sets, in boardrooms, even in his own mirror after tough losses. But this was different. This was his house, his people, and someone was hurting. He stepped closer, his presence a quiet storm. "Hey," he said, his voice deep and gentle, like rolling thunder on a distant horizon. "You okay?" The server, her name tag read Lila in looping script, jumped, spinning around. Her blue eyes, red-rimmed and wide, met his, but recognition didn't spark immediately. She was in her mid-20s, her face pale beneath smudged mascara, her uniform rumpled from a long shift. I'm fine," she stammered, swiping at her cheeks. "Just a rough night." Vin frowned, his brow furrowing. He'd learned to read people on sets, in interviews, in life. Body language, tone, the way fear hid behind bravado. Leela's trembling hands and averted gaze told a story she wasn't ready to voice. Rough how? He pressed, stepping closer, but keeping his distance non-threatening. Talk to me. Lila hesitated, glancing around as if expecting the walls to judge her. Finally, she sighed, her shoulders slumping like a puppet with cut strings. It's the manager, Mr. Carter, she whispered, her voice cracking. He's been on my case all night, yelling about a glass of wine I spilled on a customer, blaming me for a complaint that wasn't even mine. I've been here 2 years, and I've never seen him like this. He said if I mess up again, I'm fired. I can't lose this job. I have a little brother in college, and I'm all he's got. My mom's sick, and I'm the only one paying the bills. Vin's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking in his cheek. Carter was new, hired while Vin was overseas. The guy had come with glowing references, a resume packed with experience at Michelin-starred joints, and a smile that promised efficiency. But this wasn't efficiency. This was bullying, a betrayal of everything Vin stood for. Where is he now? Vin asked, his voice low but edged with the kind of steel that had made him a box office legend. In the office, Lila said, pointing toward a door near the kitchen. But you don't have to. I do, Vin cut in, his tone brooking no argument. He straightened, pulling off the cap to reveal his bald head and those piercing eyes that had stared down villains on screen and in real life. Lila's breath hitched, her hand flying to her mouth. Wait, you're Vin Diesel? He nodded, a wry smile tugging at his lips. Guilty, and I'm about to handle this. Vin marched to the office, his stride purposeful, each step a drumbeat of resolve. He flung the door open without knocking, the hinges protesting. Inside, a wiry man in a crisp black suit, Carter, sat at a desk, barking into a phone about inventory shortages. He looked up, startled, then paled as recognition dawned. Mr. Diesel, I didn't know you were. Save it, Vin snapped, cutting him off. He loomed in the doorway, his presence filling the small room like a tidal wave. I just heard what you did to Lila out there. Yelling, threatening her job over spilled wine. That's not how we do things here. This place is about respect, not fear. My mother built her life on kindness, and I built this restaurant on her memory. You don't get to tear that down. Carter stammered, his confidence crumbling. It was just discipline. She's clumsy and the customers... No, Vin growled, his voice a low rumble. She's human. And you're done. Pack your things. I'll find someone who knows how to lead, not terrorize. Carter's mouth opened, then closed, defeated. He grabbed his coat and laptop, slinking out past Vin with his head down, avoiding the curious stares of the kitchen staff who'd gathered at the door, whispering. Vin returned to the bar, where Lila stood, wide-eyed and trembling. You're fired? She asked, her voice a mix of shock and hope. Not you, Vin said, his tone softening, the edge replaced by warmth. Him? You're safe. And I'm sorry you went through that. This won't happen again. I promise. Tears welled in Lila's eyes, but this time they were of relief, not despair. Thank you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't even know you cared this much. Vin shrugged, a rare vulnerability flickering in his gaze. This place is my heart. You all are. I'll be around more. I promise. Word spread like wildfire through the restaurant. By 11 p.m., the staff had gathered in the kitchen, their aprons stained and faces flushed from the rush. Chefs, servers, and busboys crowded around Vin as he cracked open a bottle of craft beer, his laughter booming over the clatter of dishes. To family, he toasted, raising the bottle, and they cheered, their voices echoing off the stainless steel. Customers overheard, and soon, smartphones buzzed with posts. Vin Diesel just fired his own manager for mistreating staff at Vin's Bistro. Lila snapped a quick photo of him, captioning it on Instagram, "Best boss ever." As midnight approached, the dining room thinned out, the last patrons settling their bills. Vin lingered, chatting with Jamal about a new recipe for braised short ribs, his mind already spinning plans for staff training and a new management hire. He stepped outside, the neon sign casting a red glow on his face, the city humming around him. He felt lighter, not just because he'd righted a wrong, but because he'd reaffirmed why he'd built this place, to honor his mother, to create a space where people thrived. As he disappeared into the night, the bistro's lights flickered off, but its spirit burned brighter than ever.